Welcome to the Book of Life, a show about Jewish people and the books we read. I'm Heidi Estrin. The Book of Life is a podcast service of the Feldman Library at Congregation B'nai Israel in Boca Raton, Florida. Additional support comes from the Association of Jewish Libraries. In this July 2007 episode of our podcast, we explore stories of magic and mystery. As the final Harry Potter book reaches eager fans, we'll hear about the Jewish perspective on the young wizard from Cantor Amy Miller, who has spoken at a number of Harry Potter conventions. Cartoonist Jason Lutes will tell us about his new graphic novel, Houdini, the Handcuff King. Sarah Mlynowski will discuss her Bras Broomsticks series of novels for middle grade girls. Finally, mystery writer Pari Noskin Taichert will give us a tour of the supernatural side of New Mexico. Speaking of magic, take a look at the magical transformation of the Book of Life website at jewishbooks.blogspot.com. We've changed our look to match the beautiful artwork created for the Book of Life by author-illustrator Sims Tabak. You can wear Sims Tabak original art on your own Book of Life t-shirt. Get yours at printfection.com/bookoflife. Cantor Amy Miller of Pittsfield, Massachusetts, has spoken at numerous Harry Potter conventions. To give you a taste, her first paper was "What's a Nice Jewish Boy Like Harry Potter Doing in a Place Like This?" at Nimbus 2003 in Orlando, Florida. At Lumos 2006 in Las Vegas, she presented Voldemort, the Ministry of Magic and Jewish Persecution. We turned to her for a Jewish perspective on the Harry Potter books, just as the fifth movie and the final book in the series are being released. Amy, in what way is Harry Potter a nice Jewish boy?
That's a good question. In the very first session that I did, my topic was, what's a nice Jewish boy like Harry Potter doing in a place like this? And I made it clear to people that the character wasn't specifically Jewish. You know, he's not going to have a bar mitzvah or go to Israel or something. But I found that there were certain aspects to his personality, irrespective of the magic. For example, he is generous. He's giving of himself. He gives us an open hand when the first time he gets on the train and he shares the candy with Ron. And I love what she said. It was the first time that not only did he have anything to share, but anybody to share it with. We're told that giving tzedakah, giving charity or whatever, that we should do this with an open hand. And that's exactly what he did. And then a kuach nefesh, to save a life. When Ginny Weasley is in the chamber, you know, it's not like he stops to think about it and ask questions. What should I do? Should I go down there? There's a big snake. I don't know. He doesn't think about that. He goes and tries to save her anytime anyone's in trouble. So he's not Jewish in the sense that he's going to light Hanukkah candles. But I think that there are certain Jewish values that he has that were inadvertent because the author isn't Jewish.
There are deeply religious people, Jewish and others, who find the witchcraft in the Harry Potter books to be problematic. Why do these books offend them, and how do you feel that the witchcraft in the books fits into a Jewish worldview?
I did one of my sessions. I actually went through and got all the verses of the Torah about witches. You're not supposed to believe someone who divines by sorcery, who uses magic of any kind. However, there are actual stories in the Bible about people who were superstitious, who practiced some kind of magic. The first thing that came to my mind was the story of Leah and Rachel. Rachel didn't have children, and so she asked Leah if she could have some of the mandrakes. One of her sons is brought back because mandrakes were considered fertility. Because the root of the mandrake looks kind of like a person, which is the funny thing about the mandrakes in the Harry Potter stories. When they pull them out and they're crying like a baby. Well, she didn't get pregnant from that, but I mean, that's a superstition. Later on, God uses magic. He tells Moses to use magic in front of Pharaoh. You know, his rod turns into a snake and then it turns back into a stick. You can't say that this is something new. course, there are all these midrashim, the stories. They were all full of magic, and it did slowly evolve. The words Mazal Tov really mean a good planet. Well, that's astrology. Then you have Siman Tov and Mazel Tov. Siman Tov means a good sign. The Hasidim talk about the Rebbes. There's a little song about a philosopher, and the Rebbe's disciple is talking to the philosopher, and they're talking about the different things that the Rebbe can do. And one of the things is the Rebbe can take a handkerchief and use that as a balloon because God inflates the handkerchief and he can float around. They're telling you about the transcendental state of the Rebbe, but it's also kind of a magic. I feel that the witchcraft is just fun. I think she always wanted to fly when she was a little kid. Well, who flies? Witches fly on brooms. And I have a feeling it just developed from that. She never had an interest in the occult. So when these people get real upset about all of these things that happen in the book, well, it's just a story. There's plenty of stories. There's all kinds of stories. They figure so he flies around on a broom and he says he's a witch, big deal.
Cantor Amy Miller, thanks so much for speaking with us.
It was absolutely my pleasure. Thank you.
Jason Lutes is a well-known creator of independent comics, including the Berlin series about the life of that city's citizens between the two world wars. His new graphic novel is Houdini, the Handcuff King, which details Houdini's famous handcuffed bridge jump. Harry Houdini was not a magician. He was an escape artist, and in fact he made it clear that anyone who studied and trained as hard as he did could accomplish similar feats. However, nobody has ever lived up to Houdini's example, and an aura of mystery still surrounds him. We spoke to Jason about his cartoon biography by phone at his home in Seattle, Washington. Jason, this book covers just one of Harry Houdini's tricks, the bridge jump. How did you choose which part of Houdini's life to portray?
I was interested in tackling the basic idea of him being an escape artist, but trying to get across what that meant at the time and the fact that he carefully engineered all of the public exhibitions that he performed. In terms of where in his career choosing to tackle, I basically did it at the height of the escape artist period of his career. It's coming up on the 100th year anniversary of this particular escape in 2008.
Houdini's Jewish ancestry is mentioned early in the book when a policeman says, "Is it true what they say about him having horns on account of being a Jew and in league with the devil?" Tell us more about Houdini's Jewish identity.
He is of Hungarian descent. He always fostered this idea, the mystique of being from Eastern Europe, but he was a Midwestern Wisconsin boy who was the son of a rabbi who had emigrated from Budapest. Grew up in a household where his father was always studying or reading. I think that had a big impact on his discipline and attention to detail, and a lot of people have compared his scholarship regarding locks. He had a kind of rabbinical devotion, is how a lot of people would describe it. He was never very public. He didn't make it a point to say that he was Jewish. A lot of people just sort of knew that he was, and that was part of, I think, the sensational aspect of what he did. In an anti-Semitic culture, when you do the kinds of things that he did, you stand out all the more for being Jewish. And I think that he saw that, and that he would play up mysterious aspects of his history. I think that he saw that as an opportunity to emphasize his otherness and to make him seem more kind of otherworldly to Christian Americans.
How true is this story? Did you work from photographs of Houdini? Did you research eyewitness accounts of the bridge jump?
There's historical basis for everything, the only thing being a kind of key element, the way that Beth, Houdini's wife, is integrated into the act, which is not corroborated by any historical source. It's basically a legend. And in this particular case, the way that she helps him out has a certain romantic aspect to it. Traditionally, whenever he would perform a big escape, he would ask people from the audience or the police or whomever to search him thoroughly to make sure that he didn't have any lockpicks on his person. They would find nothing, and then manacled and handcuffed, he would jump into the river, ostensibly with no way of getting out of the handcuffs. In the story, right before he jumps, Beth comes up and gives him a good luck kiss, and in giving him that kiss, passes him a lockpick. And it's the one part of the story that there's nothing hard to back that up. But I'd like to think it happened that way.
What challenges are involved in creating a non-fiction graphic novel?
I think the greatest challenge is visual accuracy. It's really hard to get a sense of the really subtle details of history, for instance, how close people stood to one another when they spoke, or exactly how conversation might flow, different social habits that people would display in the course of conversing. Like, those are the kinds of little details that are kind of harder to get a feel for.
The book is listed as being by yourself, by Jason Lutes and Nick Bertozzi.
Yeah.
What role did each of you play in creating the book?
I wrote all the dialogue and did what we call in the comics world a breakdown, which is I basically structured every page and showed the artist how to break up the page into different sized panels and where I wanted the figures to be. I basically staged it. In cinematic terms, I guess I would be the scriptwriter and director, and Nick was basically the cinematographer. Sometimes he would change angles on an image or would rearrange characters in the panel, but mostly he stuck to my stage directions, so to speak. And so he drew the whole book. All the artwork in the book and the lettering and everything is his. It's from his hand.
The art in this book has a very limited palette, black and white and varying shades of blue.
A comic book is a thing where the words and the pictures ideally share kind of equal weight, so that you absorb them at sort of the same level. And the more color you put in, it can kind of scramble the signal, I think. The more color you put into this kind of graphic story, the more visual information the reader's getting, and I think it runs the risk of kind of pushing them a little further away from the experience of immersing themselves in the story.
Jason Lutes, thanks so much for speaking with us. Sarah Mlynowski is the author of Chick Lit for adults and teens. She's also created a guide to writing chick lit called See Jane Write, and edited 2 collections of stories to raise money for War Child, a charity that helps children in war-affected countries. Her Bras Broomsticks trilogy combines the everyday life of school, family, and crushes on boys with a light-hearted touch of magic. We spoke to Sarah by phone at her home in New York. Sarah, tell us about the Bras Broomsticks trilogy.
Rachel, a 14-year-old, discovers that her mom is a witch and that the ability to perform witchcraft has passed over her and gone to her 12-year-old sister instead. And there are 3 books in the series: Bras and Broomsticks, Frogs and French Kisses, and Spells and Sleeping Bags.
These are not what we'd call heavily Jewish books by any means, but early on in the first novel, Rachel and Mary are identified as being Jewish. Why was it important to you to do that, and did you ever consider not making the sisters Jewish?
I pretty much always make at least one character in any of my books Jewish, and I think that a lot of Jewish kids appreciate the fact that these are mainstream books with characters who just happen to be Jewish, so it's just a part of who they are. I get a lot of emails from Jewish girls around the country who really appreciate that there is a character out there, Rachel Weinstein, who they could relate to. She's the Jewish girl next door. Makes them, I guess, feel less alone, less isolated. It's really true. Like, I get these, it's so cute, and they get all the little Jewish jokes. Obviously not everybody gets, like in Frogs and French Kisses. I talk about Passover, and I make the goat joke. I mean, I'm sure other people get them, but I feel like girls who sing the goat song at their Passover table every year really get the joke, and they seem to really appreciate it, and they all email me about it, and that makes me so happy.
In the second book, Frogs and French Kisses, Mary is determined to use her magic to save the world. This matches up beautifully with the Jewish value of tikkun olam, which means repairing the world. Was this a conscious choice on your part?
Yeah, I think it was. I went to Jewish school pretty much my whole life, so I've always learned about Jewish values. And Mary gets really caught up in trying to just help anyone. She has this magical capabilities, and she doesn't want to use it for herself. She wants to use it to help others. And she feels a huge weight of responsibility that she has this power, and she has to be able to make the world better for other people.
What were your influences when you wrote these stories?
Yeah, I think Harry Potter, definitely. I love Harry Potter. At one point in Spells and Sleeping Bags, they wish they had an invisibility cloak, that they found like an invisibility umbrella. I think that Harry Potter definitely has strong influences. So does Star Wars. I was obsessed with Star Wars growing up. And Wizard of Oz also. I, always wanted to have magic red shoes, and I think I once tried to use red marker to color in a pair of white Keds, which my mother did not appreciate when I was younger. And I think a lot of the themes in the book, I just come from my own life. The first book is a lot about step-parents and dealing with divorce. My parents divorced when I was pretty young, so that was a definite theme that I wanted to write about.
The last book in the trilogy, Spells and Sleeping Bags, is just out. Can you give us a teaser?
Rachel and Miri are going to summer camp. I went to summer camp my whole life, and I just thought, how much fun would summer camp be if, in addition to all the hijinks that there already are, you also happen to have magical powers. I just have this image of, canoes flipping over and bunk beds falling and lights going on and off, and that's what it is. It's two girls away at sleepaway camp who happen to be witches.
Sarah, what's next for you?
Right now, I am working on a book called How to Be Bad, and it's a teen novel about three girls on a road trip, and I'm writing it with teen writers Lauren Myracle, who wrote the best-selling book TTYL, and also with E. Lockhart, who wrote The Boyfriend List and Fly on the Wall. And the three of us are writing this book together, which is definitely an experience and a lot of fun. And I'm also working on a new book for Random House called Give Me a Call, which is about a 14-year-old who finds a magical cell phone and can speak to herself in the future.
Wow, that's a neat premise.
She's Jewish, too. All these Jewish girls having fabulous paranormal experiences in my world.
Sarah Mlynowski, thanks so much for speaking with us.
Thank you so much for having me on, Heidi. I really appreciate it.
Pari Noskin Taichert writes the Sasha Solomon Mysteries and has twice been nominated for the Agatha Award, a prize given to mystery novels, named in honor of Agatha Christie. She also blogs on Murderati, a group blog for mystery writers, and participates in the online community Crime Space. Her newest book, The Socorro Blast, will be out in January 2008. We spoke to Pari by phone at her home in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Pari, tell us about the Sasha Solomon Mysteries.
These are mysteries based in New Mexico. Sasha Solomon is a classical reform Jewish woman. She's in her late 30s, early 40s, and she's a public relations consultant. Her specialty is helping small New Mexican towns figure out how to attract tourists. And if anybody has ever lived in a small town or visited one, they know that these towns always have very wild sort of schemes on how to be attractive and how to pull people off of the freeway to come to their towns and spend money. But Sasha, the other thing about her, because she is Jewish in a predominantly Catholic state, she is always an outsider. She's an outsider because of her job, and she's an outsider because of her worldview.
How does your own Jewish identity impact your writing?
Frankly, I think being raised Jewish in New Mexico, where I was always an outsider, has affected how I see the world and how I analyze the world. And then wanting to make my character Jewish and explore what it is to be a Jewish person in the world today, in a culture and in a place where Judaism is not only not understood but frequently misunderstood, just allows me a lot of avenues to explore and to play with.
Your first book, The Clovis Incident, has a plot related to UFOs.
It does indeed.
Why does New Mexico often seem to be a setting for the supernatural?
Oh, have you ever been to New Mexico? New Mexico, I mean, we are the fifth largest state in the country, okay? We are big. And in population, I think we're at 39th in the country. There's a lot of land with nothing on it. And it's so vast, and you have these incredible vistas and views. I mean, you can see the sky unobstructed for miles and miles and miles. The reason I did the Clovis incident, Clovis, New Mexico, I call it one of the last notches on the Bible Belt, okay? It is super fundamentalist Baptist. When you drive into this town, you see the Ten Commandments. They're on billboards. But Clovis has nothing going for it. So what the city leaders in Clovis have decided to do is to cash in on the Roswell UFO phenomenon, because Roswell's about an hour and a half south of Clovis, and they think they can create sort of this UFO corridor. And I make up that there have been some UFO sightings and stuff in Clovis. I mean, in research that I did, there actually was a sighting at Canton Air Force Base, which is in Clovis. What you need for UFO sightings is you need usually an Air Force base, and you need a lot of land. You need to be able to see a long, long way, and Clovis is just the perfect setting for that. And, I mean, there's several other towns in New Mexico that are trying to really cash in on this. Clovis is not in real life.
Has there been any reaction to the book in the real Clovis?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. For a while there, I was out sewing the Da Vinci Code, which really cracked me up given the religious makeup of the town. People who've lived in Clovis and left Clovis love my book. They say I've got it absolutely right. People who live in Clovis, I did have this elderly woman come up to me in the mall one day, and I was sitting out there signing books, and I said, well, have you read my book yet? And she said, it's not a Christian book. And I said, well, no, it's not. I never advertised it as such. And, she was in her 70s, and she said, I bought it for my mother-in-law. I must have caused major family strife there.
Yeah, I wonder if she got in trouble with her mother-in-law.
I really think she did, just the way she said it is not a Christian book.
Can I ask, what do you believe about life on other planets?
What do I believe? Oh, I believe it is incredibly arrogant to think that we are the only sentient beings, and this is the only sentient place in existence. I don't know beyond that. I don't have an image of little space people yearning to speak to us or that they're more evolved or anything like that. But I just think that it's tremendously arrogant to think we're it. So I'm open to the idea that it is possible, that there's life elsewhere. Frankly, I hope there is, because it would be awfully lonely in all existence to be it.
Many of us find murder mysteries relaxing, but that seems kind of counterintuitive. Why do you think that is?
I think that murder mysteries work on two levels. If they're written well, you as the reader become absorbed in the story. And that's the relaxing part. That is the escape from whatever is happening in your world. The second part, I think that most people read mysteries because they want a sense of justice. In most mysteries, you get that. The bad guy gets caught. Justice is served. And I think that is a tremendously satisfying thing. See, there's a very Jewish theme. I mean, I taught a class at my congregation Albert in Albuquerque about Jewish mysteries. And I had thought of my mysteries having deep Jewish themes, and my students were the ones who were bringing up the fact that, Sasha's looking for justice and, looking to make it a better world and tikkun olam and all of these things that I didn't even realize I was doing. But I think mysteries do that. But, it is kind of funny when you get a bunch of mystery writers together and we're sitting and talking about, what would be the best poison? How do you kill? What would happen if you... It's, my husband gets kind of nervous and my kids sort of look at me askance when I'm saying, I just found the best poison or something.
Pari Taichert, thanks so much for speaking with us.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Check out our new catalog on Library Thing, where you can get more information on any of the books that have been featured on our podcast. Visit librarything.com/Book of Life, and feel free to add your own reviews to any title you see there. As always, we would love to hear from you. Email bookoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Post a comment on our website, or if your computer has a microphone, leave a 2-minute voice message by clicking on the voicemail link on our website at jewishbooks.blogspot.com. You can also add your pin to our Frapper map to show us where you're listening from. The Book of Life is supported in part by the Association of Jewish Libraries, tending the Tree of Knowledge and promoting Jewish reading by supporting Judaic libraries and librarians. Visit them on the web at jewishlibraries.org. Our background music is provided by the Freilich Makers Klezmer String Band from Sacramento, California, whose CDs feature upbeat music from Ashkenazic and Sephardic traditions with Brazilian, Gypsy, and Celtic influences. Borrow their CDs at the Feldman Library or buy your own copies at freilichmakers.com. To download episodes of the Book of Life podcast, visit us on the web at jewishbooks.blogspot.com. That's jewishbooks, one word, .blogspot.com. Links to the books and CDs mentioned on the show are available on this website. You can also hear the latest episode by phone. Just call 916-313-3820. Thanks for listening, and happy reading.